All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Calculus 1. I give you guys a copy of the schedule as well as the syllabus. I'm also going to pass around this sign-in sheet. So this room has a fire code capacity of 40, and there's already a couple students trying to get in. I can't increase enrollment past 40, so there's this thing called academic, not academic drop, but administrative drop. So the first couple of weeks, I'm kind of trying to really watch the attendance, and if you miss quite a few days, then you have the potential to be administratively dropped. So you definitely want to sign in every day. Monday, of course, we didn't have class, so on Tuesday, just initial by your name. It's in alphabetical order, so it should be relatively easy to find. If you're not on here, it means you're not officially enrolled in the course. So there might be some issues in getting in on this section. But if you're on the enrollment, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. So that will be passed around. Then I want to go over the syllabus. For the class, I use the document cam because I'm recording the lecture. And I also have a copy of the lecture that I can then scan in and post it on Blackboard. So I'll post the lectures daily, and this semester I'm trying out posting the whole lecture of the video. So whatever you see on the screen up here is what's being recorded along with my voice. So we'll see how it goes this semester. Hopefully it will be beneficial. You'll have resources available. So the syllabus is up here. I've also give you a copy. This is the link on Blackboard, so if you lose it, you can have a copy there. My name is Stephanie Van Ryan. A little bit about myself. I graduated from University of Missouri Science and Technology, which used to be University of Missouri at Rolla. I got my bachelor's in applied math. I taught high school for a year. Here's the syllabus and schedule. And the syllabus and schedule. I taught high school physics for a year, then I went back and got my master's at Rolla. And I taught 2 years there teaching college algebra, trig, and then differential equations, which is the class after Calc 3. After graduating with my master's in applied mathematics, I got the job here, and this is my second year here, so my fourth semester. So I have 5 years previously of teaching. My office hours will be Monday and Wednesday from 1 to 2, and then Tuesday and Thursday from 12:15 to 1:15. So Tuesday and Thursday, it will be kind of nice. It'll be right after this class, if anyone has any questions. If you can't meet those 2 appointment times, I can also make an appointment, and we can meet in my office. Online office hours. So in the past, I've done online office hours. I've used various different technologies to do this online office hours, and it seems the easiest one to use for both me and the student is Google+. So do you guys use Skype, Google+, various different of face-to-face type chatting over the internet? Some of you guys are very quiet. I have to speak up a little bit. So it is possible that I could set a meeting with various different people or say, okay, I will be online at Google Plus tonight at 7, maybe the exam's tomorrow, tonight at 7 until 8 if anyone has any questions. And it allows 10 people to go into the Hangout. And then I can share my desktop, or you can share your desktop, various different things. You can also use it to study with friends. So if you're going to work on homework together, but you guys live an hour apart, you can log on to your own Hangout and share each other's desktop and talk to each other about how to do that. So hopefully with the technology, it won't limit to you, I have to do this all by myself. Talking through it can be beneficial. Textbook, more on technology. Textbook, we're using the 10th edition of Anton Bivin and Davis. The 9th edition is very, very, very similar. However, you have to buy access to Wiley. So there's various different ways to do that. You guys get my email I sent out? The hardback, the loose leaf, or just the purely ebook. You have those options. I also posted the email on Blackboard. You go to the start here, the syllabus, the schedule, and the email that I sent out to students. So if you forgot that, see, that would be here. The key thing to remember is the promo code. The promo code for Wiley, this MKC01, will save you $45. So if you go to buy it, it will say $95. And then at the very bottom, we'll say a promo code. If you enter this promo code and submit it, it's going to change it to $50. So is anyone registered for Wileyplus yet? couple of you. Okay, that's good. I'll kind of go over a little bit about that. Let's see. I was just signed in, so. The Wileyplus, you're going to go to the Get Started to register. You're going to type in University of Missouri, Kansas City, find it. University of Missouri, Kansas City, you're going to select this. This is also going to be recorded, so if I'm going too fast for you, you can watch this recording later and go through it at your own pace. The calculus courses are all listed here. If you don't, you're section 2, but if you don't know that, you can also see that if you know your instructor and your time, you can find this section. So I'm your instructor and you're meeting at 11, so you're going to select this section. If you bought Wiley before, if you were in Calc 1 last semester, or if you bought Wiley access to this calculus book previous semester, you should be able to put your email address and your password and log in, and that's just going to put your name in this account. If you have never used Wiley, you're going to have to create your own account. So you put on the create your own account, agree to the terms. It's because I'm actually logged in. They're trying to put me in this class. Let's see. So go back to where we're at. Calculus, second section, create an account, agree to the terms and conditions. And it doesn't like me because, please don't give up. So Wiley tries to, because it can really upset you, and then it gives you this nice little, please don't give up. I think it's because I'm using the same browser. Let's see if I have a different browser here. You will find it likes other browsers. If you're using an Apple, you might have to download something. There's this browser check. If you go to the browser check, click here, all this should be green. If there's some red, that means you might have to update something. JavaScript, cookies, pop-up, Flash, which I think Apple has issues with, but if you download Firefox or something equivalent to that, it shouldn't have a problem. So if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. I'll try to figure out exactly what you need. The system, the operating system, it tells operating system 1.5 or greater, so you might have to update that. And how to get the plugin and everything that you need there. So this computer should be good. It doesn't like the fact that I've already logged in once. Okay, here we go. This is what I wanted to see. So if you bought it from the bookstore, it should have came with an access card. The access card will be X or C, I think it's X, and it'll have these numbers, you fill them in, and you continue. So that is basically paying your access for it. So you bought that at the bookstore. Then you can go ahead and fill out your username, your password, everything that you want. If you're going to buy just the Wiley Access and use the ebook, go ahead and click the Buy Course Access, and then it'll ask you to fill out your name and your billing account information. And at the very bottom, there's this promo code. This is the important part. You want to save yourself $45. Put in the promo code that was in that email, and it's going to change. When you hit continue, it will change it from 95 to 50. So pretty straightforward, and that will give you access to the online homework. So let's look at when you log in. I haven't officially assigned anything for you, so when you log into your section, it will say 0, but after today, it will look like this. Your class will have 2 assignments. So if I go to Chapter 0, this is kind of the review section. So if I click on a random one, there's various different ones. This one has to do with simplifying logarithmic expression, which will be beneficial when we get to logarithmic differentiation, when we talk about the calculus part. You won't begin to be able to do the differentiation part if you can't simplify the log to begin with. So generally in calculus, students don't have a problem with the calculus. It's the algebra that kicks their butt. So we'll go over algebra and trig today after I go through this long spiel of all the details of the course. So you input your answer. It's pretty straightforward. There's not that large of a learning curve. Like if I wanted to put log, it's going to go ahead and give me the space for the base and the parentheses there. So it gives me that form. If I don't necessarily know, if I put pi, that gives me pi. But if I didn't know that, you can come up here and find it. So this is natural log, this is log base b, so this would just be up here. The same thing I get spelling out log. If I have like x to a power, if I hit the shift caret, which you would kind of expect to get to the exponent, that will give you that. Or you can come down here and kind of pick the form you need. So I have a base and I have a power. So I say there is a little bit of a learning curve, but I don't think it should be as intimidating as not getting the benefit from using this system. The system will have 5 attempts. You have 5 attempts at each problem. So let's come in here and say I put 2 here, and I submit my answer. It's going to tell me, no, you're wrong. So then I can repeat question with new values. So if you notice, it changes a little bit. They're randomly generated, so you could get the exact same one, but the probability of that's pretty low. So you come in here and say, man, I think it's 5. Obviously, these are wrong. And it says, no, this is not correct. So this one, you should get the answer wrong 3 times before you serve the solution. But here, I guess it was twice. The other instructor made this one up. So I got this wrong. I can see the solution. So this is the correct answer. And this is so they have this 2 to the 4th. Well, they're probably moving this coefficient to the exponent, which you should expect. There's these show hints. The hints tell you kind of how to simplify the log. Things that you should know. This is review. This is not what I'm teaching. This is something that I'm assuming you know coming into calculus. Show solution. Okay, so I need to simplify that. When I divide logs, that's really putting that in the denominator. Or when I subtract, it's putting it in the denominator. And when I add it, it's multiplying by it. So the whole thing should be simplified as this. So then I can repeat question with new values. So I need a log. And I don't need to put a base in here. I don't believe I need to put a base in here. Sometimes they'll throw you off and they'll want, when there is not a base, they want base 10. You could put, yeah, so log base 10. I'm going to test to see if I need that. And I think you do need that, even though in the solution it wasn't there. And you'll just kind of figure these things out. If you put in a correct answer that you think is correct, but Wiley counted it wrong, send me an email. Last semester this happened quite a bit, and when they sent that email, I then forward that to Wiley, and Wiley fixed that error. It could be something as simple as, you know, someone put negative 37x plus 1 versus 1 minus 3x, or 37. So it should accept any correct answer. Minus 37x plus 1 would be the exact same thing as 1 minus 37x, so it should accept that. So let me know, and then I can tell Wiley. Wiley just codes it in Maple. So they pull your answer and they put it in Maple to see if it's correct. So sometimes their coding's off, which is not a huge deal. A lot of students get really upset, though, because they're like, I hate this program. Stick with it, just like Wiley said, you know, keep trying. It gets better, it really does. And it's really a benefit over written homework, and students in the beginning do not believe me. But this gives you instant feedback. Yes, you did it right. No, you did it wrong. Your written homework, you write out your homework, you'll turn it into me, I'll look at a few problems, I'll give it back to you. Then you have to actually go back and see the ones you missed, remember what you were doing, if that even happens. A lot of times students say, oh, I got a 7 out of 10 in the bag, never look at it again. So this kind of forced you to evaluate why you did it wrong and then actually get you to the right answer. So after 5 times, you're up, though. So you have 5 attempts at every problem. Question?
If you were to print off the homework and actually fill it out before you do it online, would it give you different questions?
Yeah, it's randomly generated. So in the beginning assignments, print a blank copy of the entire assignment so you can work on problems offline. Some questions may not be printed out exactly as they appear in Wileyplus. Values for algorithmically generated questions will match those for your first question attempt. Okay, so it will for your first question attempt. So you definitely can do that. You can print it, and it will look like this, and I'll give you that kind of blank. And so for your first attempt, it will be like that. But on your second attempt, it will be randomly generated. So they did fix that from last semester where it would just randomly generate. Every time you logged in, it would randomly generate it. But now that printed blank copy gives you your first attempt. So that's kind of nice. If you still like that written out, which is good. I suggest you do that, write out the problems, because on your quiz, exam, and final, you'll have to show your work. You won't be able just to get this answer. So there's some downfalls to the written homework. Writing out your answer is important, and hopefully we'll cover that on quizzes and exams before we get to the final. Question?
As long as you get it right by your fifth try, you get full credit for
Correct.
each one.
Yes.
It's not partial credit
Nope.
for looking at a solution.
The partial credit comes in after the due date. So if I say these are going to be due, and everything on Wiley will always be due Monday at midnight. So if I say, well, Monday at 11:59. So if I say it's due Monday at 11:59, and you attempt all of them but one, then when you go in the next day, say Tuesday, you want to finish that one, you'll get 50 points, 50% of the points on that one question. So there is some benefit to doing it after the due date. You can get half your points. Online homework's 15% of your grade, which is pretty high, considering in the past online homework's only been about 10, or homework together has only been about 10, and a lot more weight on the exam. So it takes time, but I think it's beneficial, and then I also reward you for that with that 15% of your grade. And a lot of students had over 95% on their online homework, 15% of grade. That really helps towards the end of the semester. And you don't really see that until the end of the semester. And then you're like, oh, I have a 50% on my online homework. That's 7.5% off the top of my grade to begin with. So it can hurt you if you don't do it. So, any other questions on Wiley? If you have questions on how to input something, I can evaluate that too during class. I can open it up. I can go and see what you submitted, various different things. So we'll be doing some homework on Wiley in class as well. We'll say, okay, let's look at some Wiley problems and do this one. So I'll show you how to enter it and various things like that. Okay, so we're not too far on the syllabus, but hopefully the rest will be pretty straightforward. Topics we'll cover, we'll go through Chapter 6. Attendance policy, you need to come to class. I record the class lecture, but that doesn't mean you can't show up. I record it for having a record of what we talked about in class for your benefit to go back and watch. If you do miss class, I want you to watch the lecture before you come to the next class, but I don't want that to be an excuse. I'm not going to come to class today, I'll just watch it. So I'll be taking attendance every day and kind of keeping track of that. Online homework, I've already kind of talked about that. That's written out there. Written homework, there'll be approximately 6 written homeworks, and they'll all come from this schedule, this written homework. They're all odd. The answers to the odd ones are in the back of the book. So it might say 5, but you need to do your work. If you say number 1, 5, or number 5, 13, number 7, 12, and just give me the back of the book, you're not going to get any points for that. I want to see your work. I want to see the algebra in between the calculus and simplifying and things like that. So I will grade written homework assignments throughout the semester. I'll collect a few sections at a time and then look at them, mostly before the exam, so you can get that feedback. You're writing it up correctly. Quizzes, there will be approximately 10 quizzes, and they're also listed on the schedule. So I have 10 on there. So you'll see this Thursday, I'll give you your first quiz. That quiz is going to be over this Are You Ready for Calculus? We'll talk about in a little bit. So losing Monday, we kind of have to, speed up through this week. I want to give the first exam before the drop deadline, so you know exactly how you are doing in the course after the first exam, and you can decide whether you want to withdraw or not. And so you kind of have to go a little fast in the beginning. Hour exams, there will be 4-hour exams, and you can drop the lowest one. Sorry, you can't drop the lowest one. You can replace the lowest one with a final percentage if that's higher. So if you totally bomb one of the exams, you can recover. The chances there, but the likelihood if you bomb the first 3 exams that you're going to pull out is pretty low. But there's still that chance, so that kind of keeps some students in the game when they should realize to jump ship. But the final is 25% of your overall grade, which is pretty high. It can be 35% if that lowest exam gets dropped. Each exam is worth 10. The quizzes will be worth 15, and I take the best 8. So any more that I give you over than 8 would just be replacing lower quiz grades. Written homework is 5%. It won't, necessarily kill you if you don't do it. However, 5% can save you. Being 20% here, that's almost equal to the final, can really make a difference in the end if you don't do as well in the final as you expect. And that happens a lot. I had a lot of students last semester that didn't do written homework, and they would have passed the class if they'd done it. Because a lot of times, a lot of your points in written homework is completion. Did you turn it in? Did you try every problem? Yes, so that's half the points on your written homework. Now I'm going to grade 3 or 4 problems pretty heavily and then give it back to you. So a lot of students are like, oh, it's not worth the 5%, and then it kicked their butt. So letter breakdown is given here. So if you're at a 90%, you're going to get an A. If you're at an 80%, you're going to get a B. The A minus, B minus, B plus, those grades are in the marginal cases. So there's, 68 to 69. That's not a large range, but there is a range there. So the marginal cases where you get the plus or the minus. Questions or concerns? If you have any questions about the class, come talk to me first. I'm pretty good about taking constructive criticism. So if something I'm doing or you think I could do something different or better to help suit you, let me know, and then I can take that into account and see if I can give you what you need there. Calculus resources. So we're really trying to beef up our resources we have this semester. I'm recording the lecture, so that gives you a resource there. We also are having a new Math Success Lab on campus. So what that means is it's calculus tutoring. So for Calc 1, Calc 2, and Calc 3, there will be a calculus instructor there most days. The times are going to be Monday and Wednesday, and also Tuesday and Thursday, from 2:30 to 5, 5:30 to 8:30, 3 to 5. So in the afternoon times, but hopefully this will be beneficial if you just want to go and work. It will be on the 4th floor of the library, which is our computer lab for the math department. So if you're taking college algebra, you are in that computer lab. But so you can go and work on Wiley homework. So if you're having problems entering something, you can go there and they can help you through that. Math and Science Resource Center is the same Math and Science Resource Center that was on campus, and they do tutoring from intermediate algebra up through Calc 2, and their times are posted on their website. And then the discussion forum is not up and running yet, but it should be by the end of this week. And that just allows you to post questions that your peers can answer, but also post like, I'm going to be studying at the library at 7, or I'll be on Google Plus at 7 if anyone wants to hang out and work on the homework. So that gives you kind of access to peers, not only in this section, but in all 5 sections of calculus. So if you want to get together and study this discussion board, you'll get an email about how to use it and how to sign up for it. And if you use it, that's great. If not, I will be watching it occasionally, so I can answer questions on there as well. And that way I don't get 50 emails, how do I input this on Wiley? If you put a post on the message board and I respond to that, then anyone can see that. So that might save some time there. Disability support services. If you have a documented disability, please give me documentation as soon as you can, so then I can set up the accommodations for this semester. And then links, there's academic dishonesty, ANS Life Coach, grade appeals, all that information. If you want to know about that, you can go to this link, and it will give you links to all those different departments that deal with that. So I know I kind of throw a lot at you guys. Is there any questions? We've gone over the syllabus in Wiley, and then we've also talked a little bit about the schedule. And you can see on Thursday we'll have our first quiz. And our first quiz will be over this, are you ready for calculus material? So Is anyone overwhelmed yet? You're not overwhelmed, are you? Nice. Did I short anyone? Sometimes counting can be rough. Did everyone get the sign-in sheet? An extra one. This is also posted online. It's part of your written homework. However, I'm not going to collect it. So I will go over them, and I'll answer questions on any of the ones you have. Your quiz on Thursday will be over questions on this Are You Ready for Calculus? So you want to make sure you can do them and simplify them for your quiz on Thursday, because I will grade that. Oh, yeah, sign-in sheet for the... Oh, yeah, fine. Did you get a syllabus and schedule? Okay. Question?
Will you post the answers?
I will post them Wednesday after class. I will do that.
On Blackboard?
Yes. Okay, so let's look this. On Blackboard, there's also, if you go to course content, which sometimes I really don't know what to name these like little sidebar things. Class notes, that will be class notes. I will scan these notes in that we take today and then post them on the class notes. Online, oh, it's not there because I don't have anything to show, but online lectures, that will be the video that we're making right now. Answers will be the answers to anything I tell you I'll give you answers to, which I'll give you answers to the quizzes and the exams as well as this. So that will be in that folder as soon as there's something to put in there. Integrity classes, and Wileyplus is a link. If you want to go to Wileyplus, you can click on it here. However, it doesn't take you outside of Blackboard, and it just loads above Blackboard, which is kind of annoying. So sometimes it's better just to go to Wiley and sign in. So if you went to Wileyplus, you're still going to have this Blackboard bar here the whole time, which if it doesn't bother you, that's fine. But you don't have to go there that way. So course content has the Are You Ready for Calculus, the PDF I just gave you. It also has this Algebra cheat sheet and this Trig cheat sheet, which I hadn't opened yet. So Algebra cheat sheet, basic properties, how do I simplify, a fraction divided by a number? So I can write it like this. Various different things. Things that you're like, yeah, I knew that. Sometimes we think we remember them correctly, and then we end up not remembering them correctly. So this is just there to verify you're doing it correct, or yes, I'm doing this right. So, how to rewrite things, properties of radicals, complex numbers, special properties of logs. Like I said before, when we get to logarithmic differentiation, you're going to have to know how to rearrange this. Which I won't necessarily do a lecture on it. I'll expect you know how to deal with these properties of logs. Factoring formulas, so difference of squares, the sum of squares, or the sum of cubes, the difference of cubes, basic things, how to factor them. So some of those are there, and you'll see them come up on the Are You Ready for Calculus? Slope, graphing constants, lines, parabolas, circles. Hyperbolas don't really come in Calc 1, but that's part of Calc 2 you'll get to at the very end of Calc 2. Common errors. You want to convince yourself all these things are wrong. You do not want to do them. Some common ones. That's a common one. This is a common one, trying to factor out the 2 or trying to distribute the 2. Canceling an A like this. So just be sure that you don't do that. And then there's also the Trig cheat sheet. So, if you forgot the domain range of sine, cosine, tangent, secant, cosecant, cotangent, their periodic functions, how they work, their graphs. Let's see if I can go to the next page. Law sines, law cosines don't really come up. But the domain range and do come up, because we'll talk about the inverse function and the derivative of the inverse, and that does not make sense unless it's in a specific range. And we'll talk about continuity if the derivative even exists, and so we'll have to be sure that we understand what's going on there. The inverse properties, how that work. Of course, the unit circle. A lot of people just memorize the unit circle, but you don't have to. You can know the concepts of a 45, 45, 90, and a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle, and then be careful of what quadrant you're in. So everything is positive in this quadrant. Only sine and its reciprocal are positive here. Only cosine and its reciprocal. And, oh, sorry, I said that wrong. All students take calculus, only cosine and its reciprocal. So all of them are here. If you say all students, so sine and its reciprocal, take, so that's tangent and its reciprocal, and then calculus, that's cosine and its reciprocal. So if you know that, and you know their reference angle in each quadrant, you can only remember the first quadrant, right? This is going to be, 30 degrees, so if I have a 30, 60, 90, that's a 1, 2, square root of 3 triangle. And if I have a 45, 45, 90, that's a 1, 1, square root of 2 triangle. And then I can go through the different sine, cosine, tangent of those reference angles. So if I'm in this quadrant, it's going to be 1, 2, square root of 3, or 1, 1, square root of 2 triangle. Depending on if it's positive or negative, depends on if it's sine, cosine, tangent, and all those. So the reference angles can be more beneficial sometimes than memorizing the unit circle. So there, a lot of the formulas could potentially come in handy when we get to differentiation. Might be a lot easier to differentiate sine of 2 theta versus 2 sine of theta, cosine of theta. However, everything I give you to differentiate will be relatively simple. You're not going to have to apply a lot of these formulas. So knowing trig is important, but knowing everything on this trig cheat sheet is, if you don't memorize everything on the trig cheat sheet, that's fine. If you know the basics of trig, you're going to be okay. And the basics of trig, that's on the very last couple of these, are you ready for calculus? Okay, so let's look at are you ready for calculus? So here I have, so today is the 22nd. Can you guys see the size of my writing okay? Does it need to be a little bigger? I can zoom in. It might be beneficial. Generally, I won't have two things up here. Since you guys have a copy of all this at your seats, I will just say, okay, number 2, let's look at that number 1. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to kind of go through some of these and convince yourself you could simplify them. So number 1 is pretty straightforward. Part A, to simplify that, you're going to have to factor it. Notice on the numerator is a difference. Well, if you pull out the x, it's a difference of squares, x squared minus 9. So that factors x plus 3, x minus 3, right? And then down here, you're going to have to factor a quadratic. There's multiple ways to do that, but you should convince yourself you know one of them. More than likely, so here it's going to have x plus 3 or x minus 3 as a factor, simply because it's going to have to cancel somewhere. So sometimes you can kind of know where you need to go and then make educated guesses to get there on factoring. B, same thing. You have a quadratic on top, but you have a cubic on bottom. If you factor out an x, you have a quadratic. Everyone at this level should be able to factor a quadratic. C and D are very, very similar, but they are written differently. So I could rewrite this as x to the minus 1. So I could rewrite this as 1 over x squared and simplify that. So does anyone have any questions on number 1? If you want to see one, we don't have too much time to go over one on each one. Everyone convinced themselves they could factor those and simplify them. If I'm going to divide fractions, I need to flip and multiply. I need a common denominator. various things like that. Rationalizing the numerator, what am I going to multiply top and bottom by here to rationalize the numerator? Square root of 3 minus square root of 2, right? So when I do that, I get 3 minus 2 on the denominator. 3 minus 2 is 1. So the denominator comes 1 here, and the numerator, I just need to distribute that 2. Pretty straightforward there. Here, what am I going to multiply by? 1 plus the square root of 5. Top and bottom by 1 plus the square root of 5, I need to distribute the 4. But the numerator is going to be 1 minus 5. So minus 4 in the denominator. Pretty straightforward there. Write each of the following expressions in the form a constant times a to the p or b to the q, where p and q are numbers. So the constant here would be 2 cubed, so 8. And then what's a squared cubed? A to the 6, right? That's a squared times a squared times a squared. Or you know when you take an exponent to a power, you multiply the exponents. Here, rewriting this, okay, so the square root of 9 is 3. I can pull that out. I could write a to the 1/2, and I can write b to the 3 over 2. Right? Here, I have basically 2a over b divided by a over 3 over a. Flip and multiply, simplify. Here, I can factor out a b, factor out an a, see where that gets me, and simplify. Here, this a to the minus 1 can be brought down, or this a to the 1/2 can be brought up to be negative. So I'd have a to the minus 1, a to the minus 1/2, or a to the minus 3 over 2. Basically, your goal here is to get a to a power, so you need to simplify all the exponents. If I'm dividing like powers, I subtract exponents. If I have a square root, the exponent is 1/2. You guys, all this is coming back, right? Some of you look a little... Here, the same thing. I can bring this, so I'm going to multiply it. So I have 4 over 3. Simplify. I can simplify my b's and a. So I'll have a to a power and b to a power, that being simplified. Solve the following equations for the indicated variable. These all mean something in calculus. So this is the equation for hyperbola. This is the volume of some shape that I can't recall off the top of my head. This has to do for the area of a cylinder. This is a cost function, various different things. So these will come up later on, and you might need to solve for the value of a. So I want to get a by itself. So I subtract the other fractions, multiply both sides by a, and simplify. Here I want to get a by itself. Here I want to solve for positive r, for p, for d, and for x. So you guys know how to rearrange an equation to solve for a variable. Equations, complete the square. So recall how to complete the square. And that is also on that algebra cheat sheet. So if you go to the completing the square, so there's some examples there. So you're going to potentially have to do that on the quiz. Here's the form they will be in. Factor completely. So here I'm going to factor out an x to the 4th. So then I have x squared minus 16, which is a difference of squares again. So then I can factor out that difference of squares. Here, this is factor by grouping. So I'm going to group these two in factor, group these two in factor, and then factor again. So some foresight into what's going there. This is a sum of cubes. So you might not recall the sum of cubes, but if I have, let's look at writing an example of cubes. So if I have a plus x, what do I want to do? A cubed plus x cubed. How does that factor? A plus x, a squared minus AB or AX. So generally it's like A cubed plus B cubed, but for some reason I decided to use X, but don't let that throw you off. So A squared minus AX plus X squared. So if I FOIL this out, I have A cubed, and then AX squared plus X, but then it's going to subtract, and you're going to get with A cubed plus X cubed. You guys remember that? This is the same, opposite, always positive. So if I do A cubed minus X cubed, that's going to be A minus X, A squared plus AX plus X squared. So if you remember SOAP, you remember same, opposite, always positive. And this is for the sum of cubes or the difference of cubes. So if I'm adding two cubes together, so two numbers that are cubed, then I take the first one plus the second one, and I use the same symbol as was in my original expression. And then the first one squared, opposite, so the opposite symbol. So here it's a minus, here it's a plus. And then the last one is always positive. So if you FOIL that out, you get A cubed plus X cubed. Have you guys heard of same, opposite, always positive before with cubes? Yeah, so sometimes it's just those little things that it's like, okay, I can convince myself I'm doing it right, versus spending the time to guess and then check and then realize you're wrong and then do that. So if we look at the example on number C, so let's look at 6C. 6C. So I want to factor 8x cubed plus 27. Sometimes it's easier if we write them as cubes so we can see what is the A and what part is the X. So I could write this as 2x cubed, because 2 cubed is 8, and then x cubed is 3, plus 3 cubed, right? So I can see what's playing the role of A and what's playing the role of X. Does everyone see that? So then, how would I factor this? What would I have here? Would I have 2x plus 3 or 2x minus 3? Plus, right, because same. So I have 2x plus 3. So then I need to square the A, so it's going to be 4x squared. Opposite sign, so that's going to be a minus. And then 6x. And then always positive 9. So I can test it by FOILing it out. And if you see, I get 8x cubed, which is my first term. Then I get minus 12x squared plus 18x plus 12x squared minus 18x plus 27. So the minus 18x, sorry, I'm kind of running out of paper here. Minus 18x and the plus 18x cancel. The minus 12x squared and the plus 12x cancel, and you're left with 8x cubed minus, or plus 27, which is exactly what you started with. So you factored it down into a linear term and a quadratic term, which is easier to deal with than a cubic, setting it equal to 0 potentially. When we get to the calculus part, we might differentiate this using calculus and then set it equal to 0 and solve for the values of x that make that true. That has to do with like a horizontal slope. So you'll need how to factor and set equal to 0 after you do the calculus. So find solutions. So a lot of the times you factor it to find solutions to deal with it easier. So find all real solutions. So imaginary solutions don't exist here. So don't worry about imaginary solutions. So if you take x squared equals minus 1, no solution exists. Solve the equation, the same thing here, it's just dealing with fractions. So you want to solve for when the equation equals 0. So common denominator and go from there. The denominator can never equal 0, right? So x cannot be 0 here and x cannot be minus 1 here. So if you get that in your solution, you have a problem there. So here you're going to find a common denominator. and then you're going to set that common denominator cannot equal 0, and you'll set the numerator equal to 0. Because 0 over a number not 0 is 0. But if you have a 0 in your denominator, you have issues. So you got to exclude that from the domain. This cubic equation has a solution x equals 2. Find other solution. This is telling you to use long division. Do you guys remember long division? If x is a solution, that means x minus 2 is a factor. So this is number 9. Let's look at number 9. 12x cubed minus 23x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. So I know x minus 2 is a factor and a solution, so x equals 2 is a solution. Find the other solutions. So if I plug in 2, I get 0. So I can use long division. X minus 2 is a factor, and you can factor out you should get remainder is 0 and find the other. So once you factor it, you're going to get a quadratic. Everyone should be able to factor a quadratic because it either has linear factors or no factors at all. All right, so the back of our review sheet here has to do with determine the equations for the following lines. Line through a point, 2 points. Right? So you can find the slope and then use point-slope form to find the equation of the line. A line through a point perpendicular to a line, so you need to solve for the y here to find the slope. Perpendicular means you take the negative reciprocal to find the slope. Once you have the slope and a point, you should be able to find point-slope version of a line, right? So for number 10, you can use y minus y1 equals your slope times x minus x1. And you have the point x1 comma y1. So if you're given a point and a slope, you should be able to find the equation for the line. Find the domain of the function. So domain of function. So this function is continuous everywhere where the denominator doesn't exist. So you need to find where the denominator doesn't exist. The denominator won't exist when this quadratic is negative or 0. So you're really solving for when x squared plus x minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. That's when you have problems. So this will be a range of numbers. Find the domain and range of the given functions. 7. 7 is a constant function. It exists everywhere. The range would be 7. The only output you're ever going to get here is 7. You can put anything into the function. That's the domain. And the range is the output. So here, I cannot put in negative 1/2. Because if I put in negative 1/2, I have 0 in the denominator. So that's fine that the domain cannot include that point. The range is going to be everything when you input that you output to. So you might kind of think of the horizontal asymptote. You guys did that in college algebra when you talked about graphing it. Simplifying. Number 13, you're going to use this a lot in calculus. This is very similar to the definition of the derivative. So if you have this function and you plug in x plus h, then you subtract it from the function divided by h. This is called the difference quotient. You guys remember doing that in college algebra? Basically, if I add h to x, if I add some value to my original function, so let's say I have some function, and I want to find the slope between 2 points, I take the distance, rise over run, right? So if this point is x, let's say this point's x, and I add, this is x plus h, so I can take the limit as h goes to 0 to find the slope at that exact point, which is the definition of the derivative, which we won't get until chapter 2. But you can see here that algebra is very important. So being able to simplify that. So does everyone know how to, I'll go ahead and write on top of this, when I have x plus h, that's taking 2x plus h plus 3. So then I simplify, I have 2x plus 2h plus 3. So this is f of x plus h. So then I subtract 2x plus 3. So if I do that, I have 2x plus 2h plus 3 minus the quantity 2x plus 3. So if I do that, the 2x's cancel and the 3's cancel, and you're left with just 2h on top. This one's a little bit more complicated because you're dealing with a denominator, but you're going to end up with a problem that looks like this when you go to have to simplify it. So something that you've done before. X squared, f of x plus h, that means everywhere I have an x, I put in an x plus h. So then I'm really squaring x plus h squared. What is x plus h squared? So I'll go ahead and write this. This is like number 13. Part C. If I have f of x plus h, that's x plus h squared. That's going to be x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Right? Not x squared plus h squared or various things there. So here when I subtract f of x, which would just be x squared, the x squared goes away and you're left with an h. You should kind of hint to yourself when you do problems like this, the numerator, you should cancel out everything that doesn't have an h in it. Because you're going to be able to pull out that h and simplify with the h in the denominator. Because eventually we'll talk about this h going to 0. We can't have 0 in the denominator, so it has to cancel. All right, so class was up 3 minutes ago, and I apologize for that. We'll talk about the rest of this at the end of class. I'll have to start setting an alarm so you guys can get out of here at a decent time.